Illuminati Congo. What's going on, brother?
I'm chill, man. How are you?
Oh, dude, I'm vibing. I can't lie. Yesterday, I had an incredible day. So I went down to Toronto. I got to meet up with Miner from
Yeah,
the Ryu team, and
yeah,
then and Naldo. So the three of us got together. Just awesome. Again, putting faces behind avatars. We got blitzed. We went to this Trinity Bellwoods Park and just got blitzed. We all had like pre-rolls on us ready to go. So basically just lit them up and passed them around and just had it steady going. It was awesome. Taking a walk around the city, went and checked out a couple of weed shops because obviously it's a cool experience for the American people coming up
right.
to Canada and getting to go into weed shops and stuff. So yeah, it was yesterday was awesome. Today, I mean, we got a mint party today for potluck, so I'm pretty excited about that. But
That's right. What's that? The family?
yeah, today's evil family. So this is our continuation of the Dead family, which we had Jack Schur do the original project. Big in real life artist. It was his first time dabbling in NFTs. Uh, the project launched well, but secondary, and it was a learning curve for potluck. I would say Dead Family is one of our first learning curves where you realize within a generative, if there's a lot of details, once you back out and look at the whole collection as a whole, because it's so detailed, like some of the pieces get lost.
Yeah,
So then your secondary evaluations don't seem to like go crazy as well.
right.
Um, Whereas I found like something like Necrofux was the first mint that we really tried to mess around with our generation.
Hmm.
And to me, that is one of, I think we're getting better and better. I was talking to the guys about it yesterday. That was the first one that I was just like, whoa, you can like look back at the collection and go like, these are all unbelievably different. Like each one feels like a unique piece of art. Um, so
Yeah,
honestly, going back to the Dead family, that was a big learning curve for us because of how detailed Jack was in all the little nuances of his piece. So it was awesome to have Evil Beard step up because Jack, no interest in NFTs at this point. Um, but awesome for Evil Beard to step up, who has been pumping out awesome art. Uh, so we've got you can burn 3 of the Dead families to get a free airdrop of the Evil family, and then or you can mint the Evil family. So for me, I'm holding like 30 Dead families, and I didn't even burn any of them. Like I actually just like these these Dead family pieces,
yeah,
so I didn't burn any of them. I just plan on minting some Evil families.
yeah, yeah. I'm keeping my dead families too, just cause I want to have them Jack Shurs in the wallet.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, even
but
though it's funny, I was talking to Miner yesterday, and he was talking about his parents like grew up massive Deadheads, and they
yeah,
do a ton of like collecting of uh art from the artists that worked with the Deadheads.
right.
So I was like, "Oh shit! Well, I'm gonna have to send your
We
parents
got
over
tons of we got tons
some of
of
these Dead Family NFTs."
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that that's one of those projects that people might definitely getting impatient with, like, yo, why the floor like this or whatever. But there may come a time of reckoning where it's like, oh, these are collector cards from a legendary artist.
Yeah,
Uh, Let me get one. Let me
yeah,
get some.
yeah. No, that's very much how I look at it. Yeah, I didn't want to burn any. It was kind of the idea. It was like I'm gonna let other people burn theirs. If you if you don't like yours, you can go ahead and burn yours. But I'm keeping
Right.
mine, and I'm hoping that supply continues to kind of dwindle itself down.
Yeah.
And even when the gaming stuff gets implemented, once you're burning NFTs for labs or burning NFTs to power up your player in a game. Well, if Dead Family's floors are still really low and they still keep getting swept up and burned, well, that's I'm all right with this.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But we got so I want to get away from NFTs because we got some big topics to talk about, and I'm gonna start with I watched a movie the other night with my dad, uh, and it was clearly based around CERN. I can't even fucking remember what the movie's called, but clearly there was a portal like a time portal that they were firing up to try, like a science experiment, kind of talking about the space-time continuum, and it was clearly like the CERN circle. I had clued into that, and I brought it up to my dad, going like, "Yo, there's a lot of fucking movies talking about this hadron collider."
Right.
When I go think about the Spider Verse, so Into the Spider Verse, which was the animated one, that was I think the most recent Spider-Man that I've watched.
The next one too was very dealing with parallel universes too,
Multiverse and all that
in,
stuff.
into the
So
multiverse. Yes.
yeah, so like in that cartoon one, the big bad guy is literally this massive dude, bald guy in a suit, like basically just looks like a fat version of like a Klaus Schwab.
Are you talking about Kingpin?
Kingpin, yeah. And then he's got what he has is the Hadron Collider. And then they fire that up. That creates the multiverse, which then Spider-Man goes into. And like, I know CERN has fired up more recently, and it was just yesterday we were scrolling through Netflix again. Dad and I were chilling. We're gonna watch a movie, and we're going through the previews, and there's some it feels like an apocalypse movie that's going on. Um, Again, I forget the title, but they talk about CERN in it, and it's in the trailer. So even like my dad looked over at me and he was just like, "Yo, isn't that the fucking thing that you mentioned like yesterday?" And it's like even he now, just for me bringing up the idea of like, "Yo, just pay attention to this stuff." Like
Hmm.
they've got this crazy thing, and there's a lot of movies kind of based on this idea.
Yeah.
Now even he is kind of waking up to the idea of like, "Oh yeah, you know what? I'm seeing trailers everywhere with this CERN thing." What are your thoughts on the whole CERN? What it might be trying to do? The I'm sure you've seen like the little occult ceremonies that they've had around it.
Hmm. Well, I know right outside of CERN, there's Nataraja, the deity,
Right.
which is most people know that deity as Shiva, and most people will associate that deity with destruction, because there's three deities in the Hindu tradition: Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, like a trinity. And most people associate Shiva with destruction, even though that's just one of the views of that's just one of the views of Shiva. This is the view of him as the cosmic dancer, Shiva as the cosmic dancer, and you could see at the top of his head he has dreadlocks. Those He has long locks, and he's doing this dance inside of something that does sort of look like a hadron collider or a particle collider.
Mm.
Uh, so a lot of people have made the connection that it's some type of destructive thing going on, because this is Shiva here. Now, when I study Shiva, I actually can see a lot more besides destruction. So I know that Shiva is not just destruction,
Yeah.
but the people who put that there, they I don't know what their intentions were. I don't know if they've expressed their intentions. But the image you just shown of the technology, it sort of looks like the same thing. Like you can sort of see uh, in the middle uh, of in the Google image. Yeah, there you go. It's like you can see these limbs
Mm.
around the center point of the dancing of those are like the legs of Shiva and the arms of Shiva, and then the circle around it is like that circle of fire that he's standing inside.
So for me, I think it's interesting because um, Yeah, I do get more out of Shiva than just destruction, but I kind of get the it's like creation and destruction, right? So to me, Shiva very much fits in line with the whole like Masonic kind of idea of like order out of chaos. And then when I think about just like what all is going on in the world today, like that, I mean that's the whole like Great Reset idea. Is that like essentially the the there's a power struggle which is going to cause some chaos, and out of that chaos comes the global government and order. Um, so to me, yeah, that's kind of how that's what I get out of Shiva is like
Yeah,
kind of an order out of chaos thing, and then
yeah,
the placement of it outside of this thing, which again we're like we've no idea like what it could potentially do. You have movies theorizing that it could open up the multiverse. You know, the
yeah. It already probably has happened. You see that this isn't the first time they've done these particle colliding things. It happened here in Chicago. When they were first splitting the atom, many years ago at the Fermi Labs, and also at the University of Chicago, and at the same land where they did that at uh, is the same place that the Tartaria, that the whole where they
Hmm.
say the White City was for during the during the World's Fair in 1890.
I was about to say Chicago is the host of the World Fair there.
Yeah, and that whole thing is a big made up uh, lie to cover up truth. It appears like, because there were pyramids and ancient buildings that look so much like these ones that they're calling uh, muse- museums that were
Mhm.
just built recently. That these could have been buildings that were here, or they were built on foundations of buildings that were here that looked similar to them.
Right, and I guess part of I know there's a big concept to like when you get into the architecture of a lot of the cities, no matter the culture, they seemingly tie back to the architecture of Tartaria.
Hmm.
Um, and that isn't one of those interesting stories where it's like there's maps of it. It has been written about. It was like my understanding of Tartaria was like it was basically the big empire, the original empire, the shipping empire, where you had global trade happening. Uh, there was, you know, movement of knowledge happening, uh, but it was through this empire that was kind of doing it. Now, I guess I guess that's where they went through a cataclysm, right? That's where the mud flood comes into play and stuff.
But we don't know. That's the fun thing about it is that's what it seems like. I in places I visited here in Chicago, I've seen buildings that are covered up, where the the foundation has windows and doors,
Mhm.
and that's underground. And uh, I have a book coming out, Esoteric Occult Chicago, and has it's documenting the where the pyramids and the mounds were in the city land, prior to these times, and some of the history that may have happened prior to was being put off as history.
Mm. Now we're gonna get onto the subject of Babylon, and this might be a decent little segue. What are your thought concepts on like are those are two different empires? Are they taking inspiration from each other? Um,
Which empires?
Tartaria and
Oh,
Babylon.
so, well, there definitely appears to be a connection, between the two, because
Okay.
the Tartar was. spread all over the planet. And Babylon also had its times when it was ruling over the whole planet. Allegedly, according these are all according to histories that we either read
Right.
or it's been documented. And once again, anytime someone is telling us the history, it's having to come from a person like me or you or a group of people. And how do we know the accuracy of them? So it's when I take all of these stories, that's what I take them like. I take even the stories that people say are historical fact. I take
Hmm.
them as like comic books or
Yeah. So let's go. Let's stay on Tartaria for a second, because I guess, like, what time frame is Tartaria from?
well, they saying they saying that it could have just been like 200 years ago that it was wiped out from people's memory.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like
right, because that's where the world fairs come in terms of what I've heard of the theory of the world fairs was like basically like it was their way to try to bring back some of the ancient knowledge, and it was like the way to showcase it to us in like small amounts. But then there was the big like fire. We got to get rid of this whole thing,
the
and like there
Chicago
was
fire.
and like there was multiple world fairs. Like they had set up world fairs around the world, and that was like a big thing. Was these fucking cities they would build in like a year, and then they would demolish the whole damn thing immediately after.
Where do you have money to do that? Like where do you have resources and the time, and
And why?
why would you do that?
That's the thing for me. It's why. Like because I bet that people had the money. Like if you know, their wealth was so centralized. It's
Hmm.
the why. Why would you put that many resources into something like that just to then tear it all down? It just doesn't make any sense. You're obviously trying to put through something.
A lot of it was already there. That's the thing.
Mm.
But the World Fair stories are stories to try and make people think that these things weren't already there, and they show these pictures of things being constructed, but none of them actually prove that it was constructed. Those could be the destruction pictures, and those could be the pictures of when they was dismantling the thing and
Okay,
just in reverse.
so what you're saying is basically the a lot of the structures already existed. They
Yeah,
do they do a build where they build up with those other structures and then claim that we did this whole thing. Now let's take it all down. So now you get to burn the original structures down.
that occurred as well. Yes,
Mm, that's interesting.
there's there's a there's been so much rewriting of the history, and to for anyone to act like they know exactly what happened would be insane. But to check all these different stories and like really compare them and form some type of idea, that's really what we ought to be doing with history.
Let's get into Babylon because this is a
And
I'm
it's gonna tie back to CERN too, for sure.
yeah, I'm so intrigued by the whole Babylon story. Um, so it's interesting because I didn't realize that there's very much like two perspectives to Babylon. So you have
Or and more.
well, and more, yeah. Uh, you got the perspective of basically humans had reached this powerful level where we had thought that like we're powerful enough to go fuck up God. So we're gonna build a tower and we're gonna go fuck up God because we have now reached this power level.
Right.
So you could look at that from the aspect of like, yeah, the power is within us. Like this is what we did, and because we're this powerful, like that's why God struck us down and put the languages on us, and like He didn't want to battle with us. So
Right.
I like I've heard that perspective, which I think is kind of how the governments are viewing that story. Then you have the other perspective of like, that's why God is God. It don't matter how powerful you think you are. God can do his thing at any time. You are just a being of him, you know? And that's like the epitome of that story, where it's like humanity thought it was powerful enough to go fight God, and God went, yeah, no, funny joke. Nice try.
Right. So you have there's the Owaspy. We brought this up before. The Owaspy is a book, sort of like a channeled book, and this dude wrote a whole compelling story about all alternate stories about what was actually happening, and there's evidence for this in the actual Bible. If you look at uh, in a concordance for the Bible, Strong's exhaustive concordance, and you check the Hebrew word for God used the most in the Bible in the Old Testament, it was Elohim. And if
Mm.
you look at Elohim, Elohim means plural of gods. Elo, that's God. Allah, that's God. L1, L1. You go to Elohim, the him makes it plural. So it's talking about a plethora of gods in the Bible because
Mm.
it's not talking about just one God the whole time in the Old Testament. And it's quite possible that one of these beings that was uh, esteemed as a god by whoever was viewing the situation thought that God came to destroy the this tower, and when it was actually just like an alien being of sorts, or some empowered being of sorts that destroyed the tower. Because speaking all, if we all speak the same language, that's good. We want to
Right.
understand each other, and if we can build something together that isn't that's in line with harmony in nature, that's a good thing. Now, what we were building out of tune? It said that they wanted to build a tower to reach the heavens and
Mhm.
reach God. And it didn't say they wanted to make war in the Bible with God. They wasn't trying to go up there to fight God. They just wanted to get up to the heavens. That they just wanted to be
Mhm.
as high as they could be. And I don't see nothing wrong with it, but peep this. The word Babel, Babylon. Bab means gate, gateway. Elion, Elion means God. It also can mean lion, like Elion in France means
Mhm.
lion. And Helios means the sun. Leo is lion. Uh, we could be talking about a sun god here, or some type of Ra like entity. But when you look when you look at the Babylon, it means gate to God, gateway to God. And this brings us back to our CERN
Mhm.
conversation, because this that's what CERN might even be, is an attempt to create this gateway, a stargate.
Yeah.
It looks just like it looks like Stargate, except for the water. There's no water in the middle of that thing.
Yeah.
Uh, so those are some thoughts on it.
Yeah. So then I and I guess this is like the question of religion and shit and like belief and stuff, because that goes back to the idea of, I guess, the paganism, like paganism versus monotheism. Um, because you mentioned this, like the sun god, and I guess that is the entire pagan structure: sun god, moon god, son of gods. So that's where, like, it was interesting to hear the perspective of So you have this like battle of Christianity, not a battle, but it is kind of a battle of Christianity and like Catholics. Like they think the other is not doing it right, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like why? Well, the concept that I had heard was that Roman Catholicism is just an extension of paganism, where it's uh, God, like Sun God, God, Mother of God, Virgin Mary, which the Roman Catholics, I guess, put more to her story than uh, the Christians do,
Yeah.
and then Jesus, Son of God's.
Well, yeah, that there's definitely a case for that, but here's the thing. Man, woman, and child.
Mhm.
That's sacred. Length, width, and depth.
Mhm.
Past, present, future. Solid, liquid, gas. Uh, proton, neutron, electron. Uh, we could keep going on for a long time with these trinities on how our whole world is built on trinitarian relationships. And the idea of mo- mother God. So here's another thing. Shekinah is means the Holy Spirit. Shekinah uh, in in Hebrew, and the Trinity is said to be, when they speak in the scriptures, they speak of Jesus as the Son of God. They speak of God as the Father, and they speak of the Holy Spirit
Mhm.
as the Trinity. And the Holy Spirit is just, it's like, what are we even talking about? What are all these things are, when we talk about Abba, when we talk about Abba, what are we even talking about? When you say the prayer, the Lord's Prayer in Amharic, the way that Jesus would say it, in Aramaic, actually, not Amharic, in Aramaic, the way Yeshua would say it, it starts like this: Abun de Bashmaya, Abun de Bashmaya. And most people translate that as our Father who art in heaven. But Abun actually translates to mother, father,
Mhm.
or it could be, it's just parent. It's the parent. It could be either mother or father. Abun doesn't mean father. It's originally in Aramaic just meant the parent. And so people got these doctrines that they use to separate themselves from God and from people more than they use the doctrines to unite themselves with God and people. And in Egyptian, when we would have many gods, or the original state was, it was one God. It was the many who are the one, or the one who are the many. It was never uh, this God has this power, this God has that power, and they can have a power struggle, and one is going to come out on top of the other. No, it's like body. This is a God. This arm, this hand is a
Mhm.
God. This finger is a God, but it's all in one body. Who's the one God who, and that's how we would approach when we were living in these actual traditions. We would approach it like that, and until people began to,
That makes me think of Power Rangers, where all the Rangers they put their little things together and they make the big thing.
or Voltron, yeah.
Yeah,
But the big thing is the original thing.
right.
That's the thing that, so
As
the
like all powerful God, and then you just have gods of that have You know,
Their
like
aspects. Their
yeah, yeah,
aspects. In
God of death,
Islam, it
God
would
of
be
whatever.
called the 99 names of Allah. In uh, they're called rishis, or they're called orishas in different traditions. They're called the loa in the voodoo tradition. They're called so many different things, and to not acknowledge this as a hand and acknowledge its individuality as a hand is also not the way. So it's like that's why there's so many traditions where you will honor these other aspects of God because it helps you connect with that quality of God.
So where do these stories like really separate then? Like where, because like it's it does seem like this like paganism versus monotheism, because there's even like the aspect of monotheism, like the deep Christians, like they got a serious problem with the way we celebrate Christmas and Easter, and because you could dive into like you're celebrating pagan gods in those holidays,
Right.
and that would go against what is literally in the commandments of you can't look at other gods as God. So then, yeah, is that scripture right there? Is the Ten Commandments where the split comes, and that is the cause of like the monotheism?
Mm, I don't think so. Before, well, we don't know the timeline because you had Akhenaten in Egypt as well,
Right.
who was advocating for reuniting under the sun disk of the Aton, and that's where the word atonement comes from.
Mm.
Atone, and atone is just a round disc, and it's the wholeness. So he was promoting people to return to seeing all of that craziness that was all mixed up into, oh no, we're priests over here to this god, and we priests over here to this god, and return it back to the one atonement. Uh, and that's always been the story. Like when Osiris's body was cut up and put into different pieces by Set in the Egyptian or Kemetic myth, uh, that was them saying that people cut up God into all these different pieces and tried to separate it all over. But then the whole myth was about reuniting these pieces of Osar, of Osiris, and putting them back together to be atonement again, to be integrated into that one circle, that Ra circle. So when we're talking about Ra, if you look at the symbols will show you that we're not talking about like a different thing here than this thing. The Ra is is our own life force. It's actually the present moment as well. Uh, Ra is our present moment life force and awareness. Uh,
I want to go through some of the comments in the chat here. I see we got a good one from Angel Corndog says re-legion is what I hear.
yeah, and Legion. What does Legion mean?
Like a
Legion,
togetherness.
yeah, but Legion is also the name of a demon.
Really?
Yeah.
See, this is interesting because this is really interesting because where we put all of our veterans, um, their like spot for veterans that come home from the wars is the Legion,
Mm,
and that is like it's in almost every town, um, and that's like the local drinking spot
yeah.
where all the veterans will go and they can kind of share their own stories and be with their people. But that is really interesting
Yeah.
because you think of the war principle of who is going to the Legion are all people that participated in crazy war.
Like I forget the scripture exactly in the Bible where Jesus was uh, removing the demon from this man, the demon legion from this man. And when he did it, he had to transfer the demon into like a flock of pigs. And because the demon was so many entities, and it went into all of these other pigs, and the pigs just jumped off a cliff.
Is
Uh,
that is that's not at all where the like Muslims not eating pork comes from, is it?
it was probably be connected to it, the fact that it was pigs they went into it, but no, that's from the Old Testament, when God was uh, giving like laws on things on what to eat at one point. Originally, God said only to eat fruits and vegetables.
Hmm.
Uh, he said only eat of the fruit bearing seed in Genesis, and then a little after that, death started. People started killing people, and people started eating, killing animals. A different scenario came about, and so then God was like, "Yo, some of these animals y'all killing and to eat is gonna really f you up." So they 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 put a culture down for that region, for the regions they was in, of what will be okay for them to eat and what wouldn't. And then Paul came around and said you could eat anything. Just, you know what I'm saying, that whatever you eat is all good. And so
See, this
there's
is what I find. I
so
find this
many
stuff so
philosophies.
interesting because, like, yeah, the story changes within the thing. Like, in the end, I'm trying to figure out of like the people running the world. Are we heading in the right direction or the wrong direction? That's always like in the end what I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Because like I I would argue that I don't think anybody that's at the very top of this whole structure is like of Christian belief.
Mm.
Um, I don't think that's the case. Anybody at the top of this shit is not of Christian belief.
Not of Christian, definitely not of Christian practice.
So
Definitely.
if so, then that's where I look at it as like, well, is that a problem? Now, not in terms of it ties back to like, is was Christianity created almost as a thing to keep people? It almost ties back to that religion. Was religion created to kind of keep people away from God? Like,
Or has it been co-opted?
right.
That's how I look at it. Like these these things arise from people who are revolutionaries, militants, even immortals at times. People who can't even be killed physically, according to the story. It's wild. And so they're questioning their very existence is questioning death. It's questioning who you see yourself as, all of these things. And but then people always change it around. They change it around to be something more about a group, or organization, and directing how other people think, and everyone having a group mind, and then
Mm,
starting to worship some egregore, starting to worship some entity that is born out of the belief of groups. And then that becomes the God. Like when we talk about these many gods, those are the many gods that people have. They're egregores. And we have them for teams, for sports teams, for cryptos. We have them for nations. We have them for our family. Our families have every. If we believe and have some of the same type of ideas in our family,
mm.
then there's an egregore for that. and and that's why it becomes important to know how to relate to the psychic world. It's the same as relating to in the IRL.
Right.
It's like kindness, love, compassion. That those are the things that matter. If your connection to to Marduk or Malik or whatever, helps you be a more compassionate and loving person, helps you be a more authentic and creative and caring person, I don't care. Kick it with Lucifer, kick it with Satan. That doesn't matter to me if it's gonna make you a better person in the way you interact with others. Um, and some people do. Some people who take up those paths, it's not about uh, causing harm for others. It's about harming the false ideas of religion, about destroying false religion. And so I'm able to understand some of those people who are seem Luciferian, but they're really just kind souls.
Mhm. Well, this is what like intrigues me so much is because like when you again like the paganism structure is essentially everything else that's not Christianity. So then this is where it's like so weird for me. It's like,
And even
well,
stuff that is. Because I love Jesus and I build with and I would definitely be called a pagan by 90% of Christians.
right. So then that's what I find so weird, right? Because then like you having experience like psychedelic experiences with deities, entities like that felt more real than fucking experience I've had with somebody in real life. And it's like, well, that's something. Is it a god? Is probably I don't know, like, or is it just an entity? Like, yeah, I'm in the end, like, what I'm so intrigued by is it feels like the people that have reached the top of the structure of everything, um, have like zero belief in any kind of god. Like, it's like I'm God.
Mm,
Like they very much have the I am God complex.
mm,
And to me, like that to have that like that I am God complex goes back to like the Babylon like days where it was like the but my understanding of the Babylon days might be wrong. So uh
well, in the Bible, it does say. So here's some interesting things in Psalms 82, verse 6. It says, "Ye are gods," and then Jesus was doing some stuff one day, kicking it, and some people came up to him to try to stone him. They was mad at him, and he was like, "Why is it that you trying to stone me? Is it for the what good works did I do? When I helping people and healing niggas, is that why you trying to stone me?" And they was like, "Nah, it's not for any of your good works that you do that we trying to stone you. Y'all sure? We stone you because you're a man and you make it yourself into a god."
mm,
And then he said, "But your own law, your own word," he was speaking about the verse I just said, says, "Ye are gods." And so I do see myself as God,
mm,
but not as a God of anyone, not as the I'm not your director. I'm not the authority for anyone but myself. But I'm the grand authority. I'm the grand illuminator. I'm the grand worshipful master, the high Christ in my life, because if I'm a child of God, like I think about my children, do I want them to be worse than me and stay less than me, or do I want them to be greater than me?
yeah.
I want them to be greater than me. And if I'm a child of God, I know God wants me to be greater than him. That's why Jesus said,
Mm,
"You're going to do greater things. You're going to do greater things." And that's what I'm ready to do. I'm ready to do greater things. Now, I'm never going to say I'm doing greater things than Jesus. I'm never going to say that I'm doing greater things than God. Never. But I do want to. I want to be greater than God. I want to be greater than Jesus. But I'll never say that I am, and I'll never make it an ambition that makes me like wanting to be greater than my parents doesn't make me hate them. It makes me want to expand upon the foundation they laid for me.
Why did Christianity end up so different than everything else? Why is it the one that is so different than everything else?
Well, it depends. There's so many different types of Christianity. Like if you go to an Orthodox, Tiwahido, Ethiopian church, it's gonna it
Right.
will seem so different from a lot of the other ones. And that's because the rites that they carry on with, they come from the ancient times. Ethiopia is the mother of Egypt. And so the culture of Egypt, that we don't know where what anything about Egypt. Most people don't, because the the people that they say built the pyramid, all of that, they gone, and it's just like a Muslim culture over there now.
So the other weird part for me is the fact that, like, when you think of the gods of all these other cultures, it's there's something to them. Like, it's not just like, this is the weird part for me about Jesus, is that Jesus is supposed to be this godly figure on par with essentially pagan gods, and he is just the spitting image of you and I. But then every other god in every other culture is some form of something, whether it's elephant or like a giant,
Or
or
they can have different colors, be green or blue and
yeah,
things. But
like
they're
it's not a pop up of a human. Like, you don't look at that god and go, that's a human. Whereas, like,
well,
Jesus, you looked at Jesus and went like, hey, he's us. Like,
well, with Buddha, I would make the case for Buddha that Buddha you just see as a human.
right.
He's just a human, and then there's and then Shiva as well. I'll get this Shiva here. Uh, I had to put that up. I didn't want y'all to see me in my drawers. Uh, so this is Babaji. Babaji
Looks
is
like Jesus.
Shiva, huh?
Almost looks like Jesus.
Yeah, Babaji. Some say he's connected to Jesus very strongly, and so there are definitely images and stories of God where it's just God as a plain ordinary man, uh, and but it's a good point. See, these other images, we used to understand stories better
Mm,
when we was when they were a part of our tradition.
mm.
Like when we would read story, or like for instance
It's
Star
almost like a
Wars.
hieroglyph could tell so much more. Like, we had an understanding of everything around that hieroglyph.
Exactly. And sort of like the symbols in Star Wars and the
Hmm.
stories in Star Wars, and then you meet Star Wars fans, people who know everything about Star
Right.
Wars, and they're able to speak a certain language and have a certain understanding amongst each other because of that. But nobody mistakes that as reality. They all know it's
Hmm.
it's just a context that they're able to talk in and think in. That's what this stuff originally was. It was symbols to have a context to talk in and do magic in, and instead people got the magic done on them by other illusionists who may or may not have known that they were illusionists, and may or may not have purposefully been attempting to wrap people into another illusion of non-free thinking, non-free communication with spirit. and just wrap them into a dogma and a doctrine where it's all blocked off. No more endless, no more open-ended universe and open source unconditional love.
Hmm. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, because in the end, it's almost not so much about like my beliefs and personally. It's like understanding what the people at the top believe, and like, are they? It's like, do they have? Part of me wants to think that through hundreds of years of secret societies and these meetings, that like there is a knowledge within that they do have, they know something.
Knowledge isn't like that's the thing. Knowledge is just going to burden you if you don't have compassion.
Mm.
Knowledge will burden your whole life, and success will burden your whole life if you don't have compassion and caring and kindness. So it's like that's why you look at these people that you're talking about, the Klaus Schwabs and the Bill Gateses and the Warren Buffetts. Look at how they look. Do they look happy? Do
Oh,
they
yeah.
look healthy? Do they look like they have friends that like laugh at their jokes? Friends they could watch Netflix with and things. No, these niggas, these, they ain't got nothing. They ain't got no wealth. They ain't got no riches at all. All they got is fiat current. All they got is fiats.
Yeah, so what is it then? Is it like, is it them all? So this is what I want to try to break down, I guess. Is it them not understanding their beliefs and really having no idea, and just being power as power does? Or
Traumatized.
or is it like, we do think we have some kind of knowledge, uh and we're going to lead humanity back to
There
some
are
kind of prophecy of some
there's
kind, you know?
there's definitely people who think that they know. There's definitely people who think that they know. They think they know what's best, and they think they need to be the authority over others for sure.
Because like when you talk about the Bible, talking about eating fruits and vegetables, it's
Mhm.
like, well, they would tell you that within the next couple of years, like they want us right back to that spot where
No,
you
but
ain't
they
eating
don't.
animals, you eating food, vegetables, and insects.
They don't want that though. They want people eating processed crap. They want people eating canola oil, soybean oil. They want people eating GMO. They don't want people eating fresh mango,
But to me,
sour stuff.
but again, that goes back to like, it's us thinking that we're gods and can just create shit to be healthy for us, and it's not. Like there's something else, to like a spirit behind a plant, or like, I don't know what it, because I know there's even talk about, if you farmers, like the whole farming thing, some farms will, like some of the really intense like Wagyu Kobe beef farms and shit,
Yeah.
they'll like massage their cows, and like they basically take the cow out for dinner and have a date with the cow to make it feel like the most loved before slaughter, because they say that that makes the meat that much better.
hmm
And then there's like, so to
There,
me, there's something to that. Like,
there is. There. See, I don't eat animals, but what I say is, if you're gonna eat animal, one every now and again, do some type of hunting on
yeah,
your own
yeah,
and prepare the food. Like go through the whole process of skinning it
yeah.
and cooking it and having that intimate experience with that animal. And to
No, you
me,
you damn right, because it is an intimate experience. Yeah, that's a great
yeah,
way to put it, because it's intense, man. I'll never forget my first fish. Just a fish, not a moose, not a fucking deer, not a fish. I remember bawling my eyes out as I'm scaling this thing.
for sure. And so there's if you can do that, then you're gonna have a better relationship with eating meat. The
Mm,
same way with, if you can go pick some fresh fruit off a tree and eat it, or pick it right out the garden and see how fresh it is and how live it is right at that moment, that it just comes straight to you. You're going to get that information from nature. uh, that's what it's about, these relationships. That's what life is about, and we're able to have an actual personal connection and relationship that way. But when it's just massive slaughters going on, uh, that's also not sustainable for the planet. There's
right.
there's so many, like, the narrative isn't one way. I would never want the world to be forced to be to eat a certain way, but I would like all of the GMO stuff, the things that nothing in nature eats, but it's packed into almost all the health food everywhere. I would like that stuff to be removed. Uh,
Yeah, because like we're at the point where we're like lab growing meat. Like we're taking a cell and then can grow that cell into a thing. Like
right.
so, like yeah, it starts to yeah. To me, this shit
Not,
gets weird because like I don't know, it's meat, but like it's not.
yeah. I don't mess with that type of stuff. Like the beyond and the impossible. It's it if I've had it once, and it's not where it's at for me.
Yeah,
And just
yeah,
the ingredients, it's like it's so processed and uh, filled with things that aren't great for your body. So
so I got a question.
detox is
Could there
necessary.
be something to this preserving, like there's so many preservatives and everything, everything's processed. Is there is there an aspect to that that might be um almost criminal in nature in terms of like I don't know, maybe it's like I've heard the idea of that we're almost embalming ourselves from the
Yeah,
inside out at this point,
yeah.
because of the amount of preservatives we eat. Like we just don't like decay very well anymore. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm wondering, like, is there an aspect to why I just it's like it's almost like why this whole lab push? It's like why do you want us eating stuff that's like not natural?
Well, it seems like everything has been. It seems like there's been a major push for just complete reliance on the state.
Right.
It's statism. Like you got to rely on the state for your medicine, for your health, for your food, for your information. You have to rely on it from your information. Like if
Well,
we've said anything today that isn't true, it it'll be fact checked, and
right.
you'll get a wonderful. Luckily, you'll get the service of the state to let you know that we were off, and they
Mm.
got the truth. They got the authoritative truth.
Well, this is what I find so weird is like, and it's my big problem with like the idea of communism or like the communist doctrine, like Karl Marx, shit like that, like not a believer in God. Karl Marx, not like there's this aspect to when you go back to these people in history who are just fucking awful. But then on the other side of things, you go, well, Hitler was the opposite. He was super occulty and like this and like
Vegetarian.
very much into that weird stuff.
He was a vegetarian too.
Right. But then could just do all of the evil possible. So it's like to me it's I think I personally put things in boxes a little too much, not realizing like it's just like a bit of all of a shit show. And I think that's kind of why I think that's almost why we haven't got to the point of like a one world government already and this and that. It's because like there's so many little power struggles going on at the top
Hmm.
where you've got 13 old bloodlines that have their own beliefs that all
Yeah,
come from different cultures.
yeah.
then you have like your corporate oligarchs that are now entering
Like
those
I
power levels.
right, like I'm on some. I do my best to utilize the scriptures and utilize higher ways of understanding and relating, and it's hard for me to come together with my people to get anything done.
Mm,
Uh, like I've witnessed, crazy things happen in my own circles of people who's supposed to be living on a higher standard. So imagine people who are not living, have no intention to live at a higher standard of compassion and understanding for the ones they're working with, and them having a concerted effort to try and conspire against people. They will be turning on each other left and right. It'll be falling apart left and right, and it has been. You see, the greatest conspirator is our own mind, and the word conspiracy just means to come together and breathe. If you look it
mm,
up, it means to come together and breathe. And so right now, we're and every time you're with someone, you're breathing with them. And that is a conspiracy happening any moment in
mm,
relationship. And you can notice it because in relationships, that's where you're going to learn the most, whether it's relationship with your spouse, with your kids, with your body, with the police officer, with the garbage man. You're going to learn the most in the way you relate in those situations. So those are the conspiracies in our life. And if we can learn how to be the the true, the Wizard of Oz behind it all,
mm, mm.
then we can have a little more fun.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like I would love to know, like I would love to know the beliefs of like a Klaus Schwab, or like you go back to one of those old bloodlines, like the Astor family, or
The
you know
Vanderbilts.
the Vanderbilts. Like so, yeah, I would love to talk to one of those families where it's like you have generations of the knowledge just passed through the generations. Sit down with somebody like a Zuckerberg who has come up in this new kind of like no god society, and have them sit down and go like, where do you see the world going? Because I don't think those two people have the same idea. Like I don't think that the Astor family, and what it could just be me being super ignorant, but I don't think the Astor family having generations of bloodlines, like I don't think they'd be all excited about the whole merging with machine, like transhumanism thing.
It's quite possible.
But
Yeah,
at the same time, I could be completely wrong, and they could be like, "That this is the next step. I'm going to live forever."
yeah. But
But
they definitely got some type of squabbles going on
and
between them.
that I think that's part of the reason I question a lot of the tech industry people in general, is the idea that like I just think they have this weird thought on consciousness. Like I don't think they don't tie consciousness to this spiritual realm or God at all. Like,
That's why I've never took Elon Musk seriously ever since heard of Neuralink. Like, no matter what he up to, and no matter how he be trolling people, it's like the dude still got a plan to try and implant something in people's brains
mm,
that he think is going to solve some issues when the same things can be addressed. Like, here's the power of placebo is not
mm,
studied.
mm,
If he put all of the money that he put into that to study the power of placebo and the power of the mind and to create, uh, the thing is this too: humans are lazy. Humans don't want to do the work in one lifetime to access those things that we can access Neuralink through our own psychic development
but
and be talking to each other without without talking right now.
Right. Well, Congo, sir, I love the conversation.
Yeah, man.
Got to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. I think we had a good one. This one's gonna go hard in the library.
Yeah, this was awesome. We're a little over an hour here. I'm gonna jump get some breakfast into me. We do have a mint happening, ladies and gentlemen, later today. If you want to get into on some NFTs with Potluck Family, the Evil Family coming out, which is super exciting. But
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
Congo, love you, brother.
Love
This
you
is
too,
awesome.
man. Peace.
All right, man.